China, first row. China.
In May 2025, as the trade war intensified, China choked off exports of rare earth magnets to the U.S. Within a week, U.S. factories producing everything from F-35 fighters and missiles to automobiles ground to a halt. In October, China put further restrictions on the export of more rare earth elements and any technology or equipment used to process them.
Make no mistake, this is China versus the world. They have put these unacceptable export controls on the entire world.
The panic was felt not only in America, but also in Europe.
Securing supplies is only a first step. The processing of these metals is just as critical.
A pause in the rare earth export restrictions for 1 year was announced when the leaders met on October 30th. But the minerals remain a vulnerability. This pain over rare earths stretches back decades.
We're bringing a new trade case against China. This case involves something called rare earth materials.
Why is the world still facing this conundrum? What lessons are there from Japan, which managed to reduce its dependence on China's rare earths from 90% to about 50% over the last 15 years?
Do everything you can. I mean, recycling, investing in other countries, creating a refinery.
Many Southeast Asian nations are gearing up to start mine-to-magnet productions. How quickly can they get it done?
Strike while the iron is hot.
And in Myanmar, where civil war is raging, are rare earths funding the conflict?
One thing clear is to get the weapon, they need a lot of big fund. And we know that illegal rare earth mining is one of the major sources. That's how they get all the weapons and then back to killing us.
President Trump needs rare earths. He signed a deal with Ukraine for access to the material and has talked about buying or even invading Greenland, citing its mineral wealth. But could the Asia-Pacific hold the key? And with all these developments, is China at risk of losing its monopoly on rare earths?
In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them.
中国在生产加工、提炼、上下游也好一系列的这个，中国在稀土领域的优势是几十年形成的，不是轻易的能够被任何国家所取代。
Rare earth elements. They are these 17 elements on the periodic table needed for much of modern living. They're found in many things like EVs, mobile phones, electrical gadgets, wind turbines, and even fighter jets.
Well, you can take your own home. Everything that you can switch on and off very likely has rare earths in them. Say your air condition, your lights, your washing machine, the kitchen equipment, if you have mixers or things like that. If you have a car, your car won't run right without rare earths.
尤其是军工，所以美国为什么担心呢？比如说你要生产 F-35这一架飞机，稀土要用上，那中国如果不给它这个稀土，那它 F-35就要停掉。那你说还搞什么第6代战机跟中国 PK 玩去吧你？ 所以这个现在美国现在着急了。
Japan is the only country that managed to reduce its dependence on Chinese rare earths from 90% in 2010 to 50% today. How did they do it? The story begins on 7th September 2010. On that day, a Chinese fishing boat collided with a Japanese Coast Guard vessel off the Senkaku or Diaoyu Islands in the East China Sea. The islands are a site of territorial disputes between the two nations. Japanese Coast Guard arrested the captain of the fishing boat. Anger ensued in China.
你赶快给我放人，而且你要用国家的形式赔偿我们渔船损失。其实它不是第一起了，大家都知道。
As diplomatic tensions escalated, one of Beijing's responses was to stop the export of rare earth minerals to Japan.
Immediate response was the panic. We didn't expect that China is going to violate the WTO rules and stop exporting the rare earth mineral. First damage was immediately felt by the automobile sector. The hybrid car has just simply were not able to produce.
The incident was eventually resolved by the release of the fishing boat's captain. But the price of rare earths soared by 10 times in the year following the incident. Alarmed by this choke point, the Japanese government put together a package to enhance rare earth resilience. A budget of 100 billion Japanese yen, worth $1.2 billion at the time, was prepared in the month following the incident. More money was to follow in the years after.
Stockpiling is the first agenda. And then building up the recycling takes the time, but recycling ecosystem was there, so investing more for the recycling was another. And then this supplementary budget also pays for the compensations for the companies as well. And fourth, the investment in Australia, basically, doing everything we can to enhance the resilience.
Another key strategy in the resilience package was to develop new technologies to reduce reliance on rare earth minerals. It's a mission that continues today. Here at NextCore, engineers have created a new method in metal refining and processing, which prevents high-performance motors from getting too hot, hence doing away with the need for certain rare earth magnets.
モーター自体の発熱を抑えることができますので、これまでモーターに要求されていた高耐熱性磁石の使用を減らすことができるということになります。つまり高耐熱性磁石に使われていた重軌土類、ディスプロシウム、テルビウムなどの原料の使用が抑えられるという特徴がございます。
今の現在の磁石ですよね。っていうのは当然抑制かかってくるっていうことは見越してですね、当然いわゆる重軌土類フリー化っていうところは、求められていますし、特に今はアメリカなんかは今の重軌土類フリーの磁石の適用っていうことに関しては、適用というか開発ですねに関しては非常にお問い合わせ大きいところではあると思いますし、それはもう多分弊社だけではなくて、他にもお問い合わせっていうのはかなりいっているかと思います。
Efforts undertaken by NextCore Technologies represent just one of many initiatives that corporate Japan undertook to reduce or replace rare earth use. Other examples include the work of companies like Proterial, which develop magnets primarily composed of iron oxide, Denso, which created magnets using iron and nickel, Daido Steel, which also developed a magnet requiring no rare earths for Honda, and Toshiba, which worked together with Tohoku University to develop samarium iron isotropic bonded magnets, which is another type of magnet that reduces the use of rare earths. For 15 years, Japanese companies engineered new ways to replace or reduce Chinese magnets. But there was one major hurdle.
Yes, technologically, it's possible. The question is, it's too expensive. It's not commercially viable.
Japan also searched far and wide for sites outside of China with rare earth mineral deposits. That search brought it to Mongolia. In November 2010, Japan and Mongolia signed a deal to push for joint exploitation of rare earth minerals in the Central Asian country. Japan also invested $250 million in Australia's Lynas and its refining facility in Malaysia, which by 2023 was supplying 90% of Japan's neodymium and praseodymium rare earth needs, up from virtually none before the Chinese embargo.
The investment to the company Lynas in Australia was heavily subsidized by the Japanese government in terms of the supply. And on the demand side, the companies are also taking this as the insurance policy. Those companies like Hitachi or Daido are procuring not just from China, but also coming from the recycling and coming from Australia. Even though these are expensive,
without the Japanese government subsidizing these mines and without the companies willing to pay a higher price than market price, do you think that these rare earth mines outside of China could have survived?
No. I mean, if you let everything in the market, it is very difficult to survive in the market. Chinese rare earth mineral is much more competitive. This is one of the reasons why it's very difficult for the companies in Australia, United States, Canada, and elsewhere is struggling because of the cost.
Other countries in which Japan had significant investments, Kazakhstan, and also Namibia in Africa. According to Japanese media, between 2004 and 2020, the Japan Organization for Metals and Energy Security, or JOGMEC, invested over $600 million in more than 100 rare earths projects globally, and today oversees operations in 15 countries. Today, Tokyo continues its efforts for rare earth supply chain resilience. Efforts include investments in deep-sea mining within Japan's waters, research on new ways to recycle rare earth metals from scrap metal and industrial waste, and continued new investments in mining sites.
What do you think are the lessons that the US and Europe can draw from the Japanese experience?
Do everything you can. I mean, recycling, investing in other countries, creating a refinery in, much lower cost countries, or, building a stockpile, trying to find alternatives just in case, and try to make it cheaper. We have done everything we can, and we reduce but we still depend, 50-some% to China. We initially started from 90%, over 90%. So we are reducing half of the dependency, but still we are dependent on China because that is more economically reasonable.
Japan and China have had a long and deep cooperation in rare earths. There are numerous Japanese-Chinese joint ventures in China for the development of rare earths and rare earth-related products and applications. So this is a deep connection that is there. Of course, Japan is painfully aware of its vulnerability. So you say, I'm only 50% dependent, which as a global number is correct, but if you look into the details, the dependency are enormous.
Particular minerals in rare earths, we can't get from outside of China. So, it is impossible to be 100% autonomous, independent from China. We need to deal with it. Of course, it requires a diplomatic work. It requires a more commercial and economic work. So do everything you can to make your supply chain resilient and try to, maintain the stable relationship with China. So that's the two lessons that we learned.
As demand for rare earth minerals turn red hot, countries around the world are racing against time to meet supply. Malaysia is a front runner. This is Kuantan, a port city just a 3-hour drive away from Malaysia's capital city of KL. Not far from the hustle and bustle of the city is this, a rare earth processing plant owned by an Australian mining firm, Lynas. The plant has been here for more than 10 years, processing feedstock from Western Australia and sending them on to buyers globally. It has shaken up the status quo, breaking a near monopoly held by companies in China.
Lynas is the only firm outside China that has successfully progressed to full production.
Because of Lynas, Malaysia is the second largest provider of refined rare earths to the world, making up an estimated 4% of global supply and 13% of the United States supply. Malaysia wants to build on its existing expertise to expand its rare earth production even more.
Bagi meneroka potensi nadir bumi sebagai sumber baru kepada negara, kerajaan akan menumpukan usaha membangunkan aktiviti hiliran termasuk melalui usaha sama antara bangsa yang diterajui khazanah.
The plan was turbocharged when President Trump visited Malaysia and signed a critical minerals deal.
So according to government estimates, there are about 16.1 million tons of rare earth deposits. The signaling from the government is that they're very much committed to developing this sector. There is a special committee that looks into 3 things, essentially the upstream, the midstream, downstream, as well as research development in Malaysia.
So this could be a major new area of industrial growth for Malaysia?
Potentially. Now that there is a push to diversify supply chains in the interest of national security, and therefore there are sectors who are willing to pay good money for secure supply chain.
The government isn't just looking at developing the mining of rare earths, it's also looking at the making of rare earth magnets. The government's strategic task force projects that the supermagnet production will generate $3 billion in revenue by 2030.
It's often said that rare earths are not that rare, and it is the refining process as well as the actual making of the magnets that's going to capture a lot of the value. So can you tell us more about Malaysia's plans for the midstream and downstream of the rare earth industry?
The real value, yes, is in refining, it's in magnet manufacturing, but you need the ecosystem. Right now, the ecosystem is still building, it's still nascent, but in some sense, because of Lynas, Malaysia has a head start in building that ecosystem, particularly around the chemicals industry. Because to refine it, you need a lot of chemical input. And a lot of it does come from Malaysia. Malaysia does have a very capable chemical sector.
Producing rare earth permanent magnets is not a piece of cake. It's not a walk in the park. And you never talk about one product, one commodity. You are talking about roughly a dozen types, and then they come in all shapes and sizes. This is a very long industrial chain, which you do not get off the ground just deciding we do this and then we march in 5 years. This doesn't happen.
Malaysia is moving as fast as it can. In November 2025, Prime Minister Anwar said the development of a $140 million magnet manufacturing facility close to the Lynas plant is underway. This project is done in partnership with Australia's Lynas and South Korea's JS Link. During President Xi's visit in May, the Chinese leader had also conveyed Beijing's readiness to help Malaysia in its rare earths ambitions. China is the market leader of rare earth magnets by far, supplying 94% of global demand.
马来西亚是东盟国家里跟中国合作最紧密的，政治互信最高的，而且呢，没有历史的遗留问题的，所以政治战略互信呢，使得中国愿意把这个稀土的海外生产设在马来西亚，而且共同去生产，也有助于推进中国和东盟的命运共同体的建设。
In October, China ruled that it requires export licenses for companies using Chinese rare earths technologies, even if they are outside China.
If Malaysia were to export these magnets or even refined rare earths that were made using Chinese technology, it could potentially be subjected to China export controls.
That's very well a possibility, but also that we need to be mindful here that Malaysia's approach to its foreign policy is always trade-oriented. So we always try to seek the middle ground.
When President Trump visited Malaysia, a deal was signed between the two leaders for Malaysia to prioritize investment from the United States in critical minerals assets. Malaysia will need to walk a geopolitical tightrope between the two superpowers. There is also the question of mining impact. There has long been concerns about the environmental costs of rare earth processing in Malaysia.
Liners, hear our case. We don't want your toxic waste.
Environmental groups say that rare earth processing produces low-level radioactive waste. The fear: air, soil, and water contamination.
Environmentally, I will speak on the technique of ISL mining. You see, ISL can be done environmentally. It can also be done recklessly.
What does ISL stand for?
In situ leaching. So the process is that you typically you want to inject a weak solution like ammonium sulfate into the ground, whereby it desorbs a lot of the rare earths and you collect it. The environmentalists also warn about is that if it's not controlled, these leachates solutions can leach and it can contaminate surrounding areas and groundwater. But the good news is that there are many mitigation measures available and it can be done environmentally.
The Linus plant demonstrates how things can be done.
Saya mencari kapal ni selama 30 tahun di Sungai Baluk. Dia tak ada apa racun ke apa ke. It's good. Kilang Linus tak jauh. Dia mengambil masa selama 5 km sahaja. Linus ni orang cakap bila adanya kilang Linus, seluruh penduduk kampung Baluk akan bermasalah. Daripada kita dengar cukup takut. Sisa-sisa wangan daripada Linus boleh menyebabkan kalau lahirnya anak jadi cacat ke apa ke. Tak ada lagi isu tu. Belum ada. Sampai ke sekarang ni lah.
Sebulan 2 kali kita buat test air, sama ada air tu sesuai ke ataupun ada racun ke, ada toksik ke. Tapi apa yang kita dapat keputusannya memuaskan, tidak melibatkan kerosakan meri-meri yang ada di sungai kita.
Ultimately, the responsibility of the government is also towards the people, not only to the environment, but also for the people's livelihoods. So in that sense, you need economic development. So the government has to play the sort of balancing role.
Vietnam is another Southeast Asian country where rapid changes are underfoot in the rare earth minerals sector.
A couple of years ago, Vietnam unveiled a national plan to produce approximately 60,000 tons of rare earth oxides per year, which is enormous. But very soon after, they were stumbling because they needed the know-how. And China is not ready to share the know-how for the known reasons. So Vietnam is a little bit stuck.
According to Vietnamese media, Australian, Korean, and Japanese companies have entered partnerships with the Vietnamese to mine new sites. It remains to be seen if a China-free rare earth supply chain can be created there. Thailand too will be opening its rare earth mineral sector to U.S. investments, according to an MOU signed when the leaders met in October 2025. But this announcement was met with a protest.
Do you think that Southeast Asia could become a major player in the global rare earth minerals industry?
With the support of China, yes. Without China's support, don't try.
Another major rare earth minerals player in the Asia-Pacific is Australia. This is the site of a Lynas processing plant that just opened in November 2024. Australia will be massively scaling up production. In October 2025, Australia and the United States signed a deal to jointly invest $3 billion in critical mineral projects over the next 6 months, aiming to unearth minerals worth an estimated $53 billion.
We are discussing critical minerals and rare earths, and we're going to be signing an agreement that's been negotiated over a period of 4 or 5 months. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them.
I think Mr. Trump is too optimistic. Nothing happens in 1 year. It requires a lot of work. Of course, Australia has mines, and rare earth is not the rare, actually. You can find the mines in different places in Australia, Canada, or even the United States. The question is the refinery. China dominates the refinery process. And without refinery, no matter how many mines that you have, doesn't matter.
我看没有7、8年，这有人说15年，它不一定能炼出来，而且还有环保污染。大家知道现在这个环保分子，他会要建个工厂，他们会反对的。
They're right now in a panic mode, so they try to source whatever they can get, whatever contains rare earths in any way. But they lack a little bit the details. There are a couple of companies in the US who look pretty good in terms of being able to process rare earths, but you cannot use today this raw material and tomorrow another one on the same unit. You have to gear everything to the particular raw material that you are using. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes a little bit difficult and also very expensive. And it takes a long time on top of that.
Myanmar has been gripped by civil war and economic contraction since 2021. But it is a country rich in natural resources. And outside of China, Myanmar has some of the best geology for heavy rare earths. According to a study published by the U.S. Geological Survey in 2024, Myanmar is the world's 3rd largest miner of rare earths, behind China and the U.S., but ahead of Australia. Since 2021, the Myanmar diaspora has been trying to raise awareness on how rare earth is funding the civil war. This was an event that took place in Australia.
Our heart goes out to the people of Myanmar fighting for democracy, human rights, and we will hold a candlelight vigil to pay tribute to their bravery and sacrifice.
Amongst the pro-democracy posters, there were these messages.
In February 2021, military overthrown the civilian governments. Since then, we know that they increased a lot of illegal mining.
Reports have emerged that much of the rare earth mining takes place in Kachin State in northern Myanmar, near the China border. Activists like Lewis believe the mining is being used to fund the war that the military is waging on rebel groups.
One thing clear is to get the weapon, they need a lot of big fund. And we know that illegal rare earth mining is one of the major sources. That's how they get all the weapons and then back to killing us.
Myanmar civil society groups and international human rights organizations say the rare earth from Myanmar is sold to China. Myanmar's lucrative trade in the mineral is worth $1.4 billion in 2023.
所以他赚了钱以后，他干什么去了？就是缅甸国内的问题，他内战本身就是个悲剧嘛。中国也不希望他内战，他内战了以后导致了我们这个导致了什么电信诈骗啦、边界啊不稳定啦、我们的一带一路合作啊等等吧，都是受害者。你还说中国资助了内战，你这不是瞎胡闹吗？这不是。
Many reports have emerged about the severe damage to the environment caused by rare earth mining. Myanmar journalists in Kachin State took these photos and conducted the following interviews. The interviewees chose to remain anonymous for safety reasons. Photos captured on the sites of these rare earth mines show the worker wearing no mask and no protective gear. Videos show pipes running down the hill. The locals say that the liquid has a strong smell and definitely isn't water. The contamination extends far beyond the mining sites. Tun Ong Shui, a representative from the civil government, shows us the extent of the damage in rare earth sites in Kachin State.
So, as you know, the current political crisis in Myanmar is very difficult to go inside. These are the illegal rare earth mining areas. So these blue spots are filled with the very toxic material. So they dig the ground and then they line it with the plastic sheets and then they put all these chemicals. If the plastic sheet tear, the chemical go inside the soil and then damage the environment. Our concern is the lack of the regulatory body and the lack of compliance on the environmental practice. These are owned by Chinese business firms and local owners. Rare earths are going to China.
In a turn of events, the Kachin Independence Army seized control of swaths of northern Myanmar's Kachin State, including the rare earth mining sites in October 2024. Since the time, there have been reports about the Kachin Independence Organization, or KIO, engaging with both India as well as the United States to discuss the sale of rare earths.
I'm from Kachin State. That is my native state, and I grew up there in the mountain area.
What's the latest situation with regards to the rare earth mining in Kachin State?
As soon as they occupy, they stop for a while for some months, but afterward, they allow to the ore mining to operate, they need a lot of revenue. So they really have to earn the revenue from these resources.
It's been widely reported that China was the largest buyer of rare earths. Now, with the KIO in charge, will they sell it to them?
Since we have been conflict, we have no bargaining power. We have no choice, and just need to sell to them to earn the revenue. But on the other hand, they also really need to other option, to sell to the other country, not just China. But unfortunately, all this ground situation, because the whole country have the armed conflict, so it's really difficult to manage to diversify, to selling to the other people like India or other countries. So they have no choice, and they really have to sell to China.
You've been following the rare earth situation for many years. As a Kachin person, what kind of outcomes do you hope to see?
I really wish, actually to stop totally, because the impacts are so huge and, so bad. And this is also the really upstream, because Kachin State is the watershed area of the Irrawaddy River of Myanmar, which is the largest and longest river. So entire population of the Myanmar are utilizing this river. So because of this toxic mining, now all these stream and river are polluted already. Billions of revenue should be contribute to the local development, not the very good one, but just basic infrastructure like health, education, the road transportation, something like that. But now it's zero, it's nothing, we have nothing.
The Middle East has oil, China has rare earth. These were the words of China's leader Deng Xiaoping back in 1992. And his goal was for China to become a rare earth minerals powerhouse.
显明同志当时讲的是中国有这样一个储备，当时考虑就是要赚外汇嘛，非常穷的一个国家，中国人均 GDP 在改革开放之初只占撒哈拉以南非洲平均1/3都不到。那这样一个情况下呢，我们要换外汇，靠廉价的劳动力是换不了外汇的，那就靠这个稀土。所以那个时候稀土当白菜价格卖到了世界各地。
When Deng Xiaoping died, the mission was passed to a geologist named Wen Jiabao. He had earned a master's degree in rare earth sciences in the late 1960s. Wen went on to become China's premier from 2003 to 2013. During a visit to Europe, he said that little happened on rare earth policy in China without his personal involvement. As Beijing invested heavily in state-owned mining firms to build up China's rare earth industries, the country incurred high environmental costs. This news report from 2012 showed how a forest on a mountain was turned into a rare earth mine. The toxic wastewater discharged from rare earth washing here turned 53 hectares of local farmland into a wasteland.
明天不能种植了，连牛吃了这个草地都要死掉的。
The United States was the global leader in rare earth production back in the 1950s to the 1980s. What happened?
You're talking about one particular mine, that is Mountain Pass in California, which is a bastnäsite deposit that contains lanthanum and cerium. These two elements were very popular in the 50s and 60s, but the popularity faded, and other rare earths took the place. And Mountain Pass also has had its fair share of environmental problems. In the 1980s and 1990s, we had this environmental consciousness developing in our countries. In the early 1990s, then in France, rare earth production separation stopped. Simply, if they can do it cheaper, why don't we buy it from them? Yeah.
It wasn't just China's willingness to tolerate the long-term environmental costs. The same formula that helped China build a global competitive edge in EVs, that is, original research, education, technology upgrades, access to bank credit, state-guided industrial policy, and sheer hard work. Well, all of that was also applied to the rare earths and magnet sector.
相当于你把一座山里面产生稀土量非常有限，提炼出就这么甚至是多少公斤吧，所以要淘汰大部分的这些其他国家，它没有，应该来讲呢，它可能有这个能力，但是它觉得不合算，它工艺早就淘汰了。美国曾经有稀土冶炼的能力了，因为它成本非常高，那就干脆转到中国来了。所以中国承担了刚才讲世界上90%以上的这种加工精炼能力。
Marina Yue Zhang, who lives in Australia, studies innovation in China.
There are enough deposits in the world that can supply rare earths, but I'll quote Elon Musk. He once said, whoever controls the deposits or the mines of those rare earths actually are not important. The critical point is who controls the processing technologies. The United States actually has its own rare earths, metals, and access to mines, but they have to export most of those products to China for the final processing, high value-added processing.
It was only in April 2025, as the US-China trade dispute escalated, that the US stopped sending its rare earths to China for processing.
China is the only country in the world that has developed capacity to cover the entire value chain of 17 rare earth elements. China has developed advantages in not just technology, but also waste management. Another advantage is China has the largest manpower in rare earths. I think this is the number a few years ago. If there are only 100 PhDs in rare earths, guess how many the West has? The number at the time was 0. China has employed educated engineers of thousands, so no other country can compete with China on that front.
2025 is not the first time that China has restricted rare earth exports.
We're bringing a new trade case against China, and we're being joined by Japan and some of our European allies. This case involves something called rare earth materials.
Despite many policy papers written on it over the years, the U.S. did not act until now.
At its core, China's new measures include a rule saying that any product of which more than 0.1% of minerals consist of minerals mined or processed in China, one must seek approval from the Chinese government before trading it. Since many important semiconductors, for example, have these critical minerals, and semiconductors are in nearly everything, this rule gives China control over basically the entire global economy and the technology supply chain.
And make no mistake, this is China versus the world. They have put these unacceptable export controls on the entire world.
The United States is in the middle of an AI data center boom, which requires rare earths for its construction. The military-industrial complex needs it just as much. Countries around the globe are now racing to mine rare earths. But that is just the first of many steps needed.
Securing supplies is only a first step. The processing of these metals is just as critical. And today, China controls the global processing industry. So we will identify strategic projects all along the supply chain, from extracting to refining, from processing to recycling, and we will build up strategic reserves where supply is at risk.
The G7 has also announced plans to loosen China's grip on rare earths.
This table can produce reliable supplies in critical minerals for the future.
所以中国只要用了这个稀土这张牌，那么一定会激发更多的，尤其是美国去取代这张牌。所以中国当然还有别的牌了，不能说就靠这张牌。但是我觉得，没到5、8年、5年、8年，或者他很难做到。原因它有3个最起码的软肋。第一个刚才讲的，你要去开采，他自己有了他稀土资源，他不开采，那现在要开采，你要领证啊，你要圈地啊，你当地老百姓他怎么想啊？破坏环境的这个事，你知道吗？你还要设厂你还要把这些盟友资源要整合在一块，盟友也不总是听你的。你特朗普现在大家跟盟友征收关税，大家实际上也是敢怒不敢言，你知道吗？另外一个最重要的，它不符合市场经济。你这个美国也好，这些国家都是资本主义国家，你不是说市场经济，你市场上能买到中国又好又便宜的，你为什么你自己也去生产？那现在呢，谈判谈好了，特朗普谈好了，中国又出口管制又松动了，那你更没有必要去生产吧，这费力不讨好。等你生产出来以后，刚才讲了，这个提炼的技术精度可能还不如中国的。中国是大量就像炼丹一样的，练了多少年才练出这个本事来的？你去练，你没有这个耐心。
How long do you think it's going to take the world to wean itself off China rare earth minerals and magnets?
Never. It's not possible. China has built up a capacity, particularly in rare earth permanent magnets, which is huge. We can come up with crude solutions for several products, for several applications, but the whole range of dozens of different products, of different purities and all that, very difficult.